So, Coach and Mentor Session 2012 for the Senior Solutions season. Again, I'm Kevin Reed from First Washington, and that's the group that puts on the first events in our state. Quick things before we get too far along. If you've never done a GoToMeeting or an online webinar, hopefully you have a little interface like the one I've got shown in the screen here. These presentations usually have a number of attendees, so I don't let the audio run because there's usually dogs barking and all kinds of dishwashers running in the background. So if you want to get my attention or have a question, you can raise your hand as I show here, and I'll see that on your the attendee list, and then I can try to jump in and answer the question. Better yet, though, is to type questions in the chat window at the bottom. Yours is called questions, mine's called the chat window, but if you type in this window and send it, I'll see it, and then I'll usually stop the presentation. Occasionally I get going and I miss them, or especially if there's a lot of them coming in. So don't hesitate to try to remind me. Sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't, because I'm winging it by myself tonight. So I'm going to unmute everyone very briefly, and just do that just in case there's any technical problems. You can also type in problems or issues in the chat interface if you need me to before I jump in. So here we go. I'm going to unmute everyone. Anyone with a microphone or calling in can speak now. And there's our obligatory noise. Okay. So that's also the other problem is speaker reflection. Okay, I'm letting you talk now. Anybody have questions? Anything? Last chance. Okay. In we go. So we're going to talk briefly about these big topics tonight. Number one, if you've never heard or seen FIRST before, I want to review the program in total so that you understand that FLL, the part you're doing, is a piece in a much bigger puzzle. And it's mostly because if you have kids at other ages, there's a number of opportunities for them as well. Then we'll talk about FLL specifically, get into some things, some techniques for helping with coaching. I'll cover what the tournament day looks like, which is what you're all working toward. And then I have a bunch of links at the end of the presentation that you'll have access to once I post it tonight. This presentation is not available online yet, but it will be. And if you get bored stiff and just can't stand it anymore, you can jump off, and then I'll email everyone the links to the presentation later. We're not going to talk much about the project itself, the challenge theme, nor am I going to talk much about the project topic. That's kind of beyond the scope of what we're trying to do, and that's because I'm trying to keep this under 2 hours. Usually I'm an hour and a half, and we have a whole lot of questions or something, so I'll just warn you. I'll go relatively quick, but again, just type me a question if you have any, and I'll try to stop and answer them along the way. So if you don't know or haven't been caught up in the FIRST fervor around here, or nationally for that matter, come from a place where you did FIRST before, FIRST was started by a guy named Dean Kamen. You probably would know him best as the inventor of the Segway scooter. He's also very well known in the engineering community as a inventor of prosthetic and other medical devices, and his whole external life beyond work is devoted to FIRST and getting the FIRST program started. The program itself is about 20 years old, so it's been around a while, but the FLL program is not quite that old, which we'll talk about in just a sec. But you should know who Dean is, and that his entire purpose for getting FIRST going was to change the way scientists and engineers and technical folks and even career-minded people are viewed in the community, try to make that more like our rock stars and our artists in the world that are revered. We want to make it cool for kids to get into these occupations, and we need lots more of them. So hopefully, and I think it's working. We're getting a lot more kids going into engineering and science, in part because of the FIRST program, which is great. And it is, like any other good engineering project, an acronym. FIRST, it's for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. It's all over the world, and we now are so big that there's hundreds of thousands of students and people involved, which we'll cover in just a quick second. But again, at the end of the day, this is all about getting students to think about careers in science and technology as early as possible. This is a graphical way to talk about FIRST here, just some quick stats. It's all nonprofit, of course, but the important stuff is 300,000 students now, 120,000 volunteers, of which you were a part. We're in more than 60 countries now, and there's 3,500 and growing sponsoring companies in the FIRST universe. Lots of people supporting FIRST, and and even around in our state, there's more sponsors every year who see the value of this. Boeing, Microsoft, Intel, the list goes on and on, because in part they want to see more kids get into science and technology because they want to hire them, and they're always having trouble finding experienced and properly educated people to take positions in their company. And with all the things that are going on with the job market, we see this as an opportunity for the kids to get started early and get on the right path so that they've got some place to go when they get out of school. Most importantly is this FLL program and this list of programs on the bottom here. The key thing to note here is that the programs are focused on certain age groups. We now, with the Junior FLL edition in 2006, can offer a program to kids from kindergarten all the way through high school. And FRC and FTC programs are both high school programs. One's got a bigger robot, the other one's slightly smaller. But you guys are here for FLL. And as you can see, FLL's been around for, 14 years now, coming up on 15, so we've been doing this a long time. I haven't been in it quite that long, but almost, feels like. This is a pictorial way to look at the robots programs from FIRST. On the bottom axis are the grades, kindergarten through 12, and it just gives you a picture of what the program looks like when it's in action. The Junior FLL kids do a robot model that has some sort of motion and a poster. And then FLL, which is our program, the kids are operating a robot on the competition table there. The key thing about FIRST LEGO League and Junior FIRST LEGO League is that they share a theme. So they're typically tied together with the goal of encouraging the young kids to consider going into FLL. We try to do our Junior FLL and FLL programs together so that they can see this progression from where they are now to where they can go next. But then you get from FIRST LEGO League to FIRST Tech Challenge. The robots are about the size of a microwave or a toaster oven, and they run on the same electronics, the same Lego NXT brick that we use in FLL. They program them differently, but the key thing to note there is that a lot of the things the kids learn in FLL is transferable to FTC. Competition field for FIRST Tech Challenge is a 12 by 12 square mat. Then there's the FRC, which is the same age group as FTC, but the robots are much bigger. They have a dedicated embedded wireless robot controller. In terms of program size, it's 3 or 4 times larger than FIRST Tech Challenge for resources and money and all the other things. But it also is much bigger robots on a bigger field, and it was the first program that Dean put together for FIRST. So just so you have a quick overview of what FIRST looks like. This is a great opportunity to try to differentiate something that confuses people every year. I am part of FIRST Washington. We're the local organizing committee that puts on FIRST events all over the state. You'll get emails from me. They'll be kevin.reed@firstwa.org. You also get lots of emails from one person or another at FIRST, and those email addresses end in usfirst.org. They need us to help put the regional competitions on and do these presentations and things. But do keep in mind that there's 2 separate organizations sending you email and asking for things. There's 2 registrations. You register with National FLL to get your kit. You register with FIRST Washington to go to a regional competition. So it's an important point to make so that you don't get confused, and it is confusing, and we have it every year. We are also a 501c3, much smaller than National FIRST, of course. Almost everyone in Washington FIRST Robotics, FIRSTWA, is a volunteer, myself included. We do this in our spare time, and I tell you that sort of as a veiled excuse for not getting back to you right away or missing your email completely. And so if you ever need something urgently, send us a couple of emails if you haven't heard back, especially in 24 hours. A lot of us, we're off on business trips or whatever, so sometimes it takes a little longer than we'd like. But do please get in touch with us and stay after us if you need something. We do offer all programs. We work together across all 4 FIRST programs, so you'll see a lot of the same faces at FRC competitions and FLL. That's somewhat unique for Washington. It doesn't happen in a lot of states. Each program is sort of a separate group. They don't work together, and that's hopefully changing in FIRST, but we're sort of a model state in that regard, that we all work together for all the programs. Okay, so enough of that. Any questions about what FIRST is and FIRSTWA? This would be the moment where you raise your hand and or type me something in the chat window. Okay, either I put you all to sleep or we're moving along well. So this photograph I have on screen here, if you're watching along, is a picture of what a tournament looks like. You'll see that it's inside of a high school gym-looking place. There's a bunch of kids milling around, which is pretty common. Lots of adults standing either watching or kids competing on the tables back in the distance there. but I just want you to have an idea. This is what your tournament day is going to look like, and this is sort of what you're heading toward. We're going to cover some of the key pieces of FLL next, the core values we call them, and then talk about what you, as a coach, what you're going to do, and then get into some of the nuts and bolts of what the competition looks like for you. I put this slide in here, which at least I hope is still a direct copy of the inside of the cover of the coach manual. These are the core values. FIRST has emphasized these core values more emphatically in the last couple of years. In fact, so much that they created a whole separate set of awards, which we'll talk about later, that are just about core values. I've highlighted my 4 favorites here, the things I think that are most important for you and your students. Number 1, of course, is that this FLL thing you're doing is about helping the kids learn to work together as a team. Everybody talks about teamwork and gives lip service to it. This is a great opportunity for your kids to learn how to work together, even with people that they don't necessarily get along. So as a coach, you need to keep that in mind and keep them heading toward that direction. At this age, a lot of the students want to go off in a corner and just build Legos, and we want you and need you to resist that as best as you can, because you're teaching them a skill. So don't forget that along the way and let them sequester themselves. Keep them together, try to get them to work together, because it really is a skill. It's not just something that's important, it's something they've got to learn to thrive out there in the world. The other core values you certainly should read. I am going to highlight just these 4 now, but you've got to understand that those are on the inside cover of the coach manual for a reason. They're the most important thing that FIRST is trying to help all of us understand. So please look at them. The next one that I want to stop on, though, is honoring the spirit of friendly competition. This and all FIRST events are about helping the kids see that the benefit of not only working together as a team cohesively, but working collectively with other teams to get things done. Most of the problems we engineers face in the world are so complex that not even a small group of people can fix them. It's multiple small groups of people, and sometimes large groups of medium-sized groups of small groups of people working together. And we want the students to understand that it's not necessarily just about getting their team to win, but about how to get other people to at least get something out of FLL, even if they don't win. And by that I mean, if you go to a competition and there's 12 teams there, and one of the teams has a dead battery, at a sporting event, they get ejected because they can't compete and they're done. They can't do anything. But at a FIRST competition, the remaining 11 teams will figure out how to get a battery so that that team can compete that day. And we're trying to teach this skill of seeing the overall larger benefit of what they're there and what they're the competition for. And this is also common at all programs, even in FRC. You'll see teams giving other teams robot controllers, $1,000 robot controllers, because the one that the team that's in trouble needed is broken, burned up, spare batteries, and it's a constant flow of goodwill back and forth. We want to encourage that even at this age. And it's tougher at this age, frankly, but we want to encourage that. We also want to focus a lot on sharing what we learn. And if you don't know already, you have a project to do in addition to all the things you're doing with the robot. So one of the key components of the project is getting your problem and your solution sorted out, getting your presentation ready, but then getting that information out in the community. And it's become more and more important over the years because FLL teams are solving real problems. They're coming up with solutions that are important. And this year's challenge with the senior solutions, we have this huge baby boom population coming up, which is putting a lot of stress on all of our economic systems and healthcare and all those things. And so this is an opportunity for your FLL team to bring visibility to that. And as silly as it may seem for a bunch of middle school kids tucked away in a classroom someplace working on Legos, there's many examples of FLL teams accomplishing really tremendous things through this program that save a lot of money or solve a big problem for somebody or make someone's life better. So don't underestimate the power of sharing what you guys accomplish with your students. And it is a requirement as part of the project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the last and most important one for all FLL is about having a good time. And once again, this is something that's very easy to give lip service to, but FLL has to be fun for the kids to want to think about science and engineering careers. So if we bomb out at having a good time doing FLL, then the kids don't get what they need to out of this whole program. And hopefully you're having fun because the kids are having fun and vice versa. If that's not happening, you need to get in touch with me or someone, another coach that you know, or your school district, or somebody. Cry out for help as early as possible, because if you're having a lot of trouble and nobody's having any fun and nothing's getting done, then FLL isn't working, and we want to make sure that it doesn't happen. So send me an email, and then if I don't respond, send me another one and say, help, I need somebody to come in. We have lots of coaches and other people in our program that will happily come visit you or talk to you on the phone and help you find ways to make sure FLL is fun for you and the students. So don't suffer silently, please, for the sake of yourself and your kids. You'll see this word, gracious professionalism, spread throughout the first programs, even in FLL now. It used to mostly hover around FRC, but we're seeing it everywhere. The key tenets of gracious professionalism are we compete against the problem and respect the people. And we're not competing against the people necessarily. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier with friendly competition as a core value. You guys are there to solve a problem. That's why you have the project problem and you come up with a solution. That's why we have robot missions. You're competing with the robot table. You're competing with the problem you've identified for the project. The kids are doing this. They need to focus on these problems and issues that they're trying to solve, not about beating Team ABC because they have kids from the same school or something. It's going to happen anyway. Kids are competitive, especially at this age. That's all it's about. But help them focus on a different kind of respect and learning respect for their co-competitors. And the second thing, of course, is mutual gain. We want them to not necessarily have to reinvent everything so that they can compete in FLL. We want them to understand that it's okay to go out there and find good ideas, acknowledge that they're good ideas that someone else came up with, and then make them better. Use the shoulders of your predecessors, stand upon them, and do great things. That's gracious professionalism. Recognizing these people that have gone before and done great things, and then capitalize on what they've already learned. So I apologize if this seems a little long-winded, but it's really important stuff because this isn't like being on a baseball team where you're just going to go out and there's going to be a winner and a loser, and at the end of the year somebody gets a big trophy and everybody else just goes home and tries again. Kids have to get more out of this. Okay. Oh, I've got a hand up, but it looks like he's offline. Hold on just a second. Oh, I lost them. They're gone. Shoot. Sorry for the delay. I lost somebody who had a hand raised, so we'll have to wait for them to come back. Okay. Now I'm going to just show you this page. This is the coach's promise. This is the second page of your manual, so it's second only in importance to the core values. These are just some mechanics things. Make sure the kids come first and that they do all the work on the team. This is not about learning. This is not about you showing the kids how great you are at programming. This is about them learning how to program. Aha! I've got somebody here. Hang on just a minute. Shay, do you have a question? Is it Shay? Can you hear me?
No, I'm sorry. My computer crashed and now it's back.
Okay. I can't hear you. Your audio's dropping out. Please type me a message in the chat window if that's okay. Wow, that was surreal. Okay, questions, pain. Sorry, folks. Okay, got it. All right, we're good. Sorry about that. This is going to happen because I don't have someone answering questions tonight, so I'm going to have to stop and answer them and then jump back in. Okay, so back to the coach's promise. Another couple key things. Your team is 10 or less students. That 10 is maximum. That's an FLL rule. And your students have to be 14 years old or younger on January 1st. Whoops, that's not supposed to say 2011. It's supposed to say 2012. We need them to be 14 at least 1 second of the year in which the challenge is released. So what that means is even if they're 15 now, as long as they were 14 sometime this year on January 1st and they turned 15 on January 2nd, they can still compete. This gets people a little crazy, but don't worry about it if you have kids that are under 14 years old. But if you have a question about that, get in touch. Okay, email address is up to date at gofll.usfirst.org. And what that means is when you registered your team, if someone else paid the bill and they didn't mark you as the receiver of as the coach or the assistant coach, then you need to make sure that your email address is in there because I do all of my communication with coaches by email. So, excuse me, the phone's ringing in the background. My kid should get that any second. And then if I don't have your email, you're not going to hear from me and you're not going to know when to register and do lots of other things. So make absolutely sure that you get that up to date. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need help with that, send me an email. kevin.reed@firstwa.org. Okay, you're going to cover rules, which we'll look at in a second. And as I've already mentioned, core values are super important, something you have to pass on to the kids, so make sure you understand them yourself. Okay, finally some real data. This is the timeline for FLL. And if you don't understand this yet, then this is a good opportunity for you to see what the whole season looks like on the calendar. The registration opens in May. Many of you may have just heard about FLL for the first time. But this is what the season looks like. You can sign up next year if you come back, if we can lure you back, as early as May. Starting in September, usually the first week the challenge is released. This year it was a couple of days before the first week of September. It was August 28th. And then by the end of September, registration closes. So the point is you can register as early as May. The kits don't start shipping until August, and you can register as late as September 30th. Registration is moving very fast, 100 teams a day. They may run out of registrations before September 30th, and if that happens, it's tough luck. So if you're thinking about doing this and you haven't done it yet, now's the time to get that done. And then October to November, which is coming up here, you're going to be working on your project in Robot. In fact, you may be able to work even later through December and even January if your regionals are later in the year. And then starting in December and ending in February, we have all of our regional competitions. In February, we have championships. There are 2 in the state of Washington, one in eastern Washington, the other over in the west here. And then finally in April, there's a World Festival and National Expo in St. Louis. And one team, usually from the state of Washington, gets to go to that. I suspect this year it will be a team from the eastern Washington part of the state. Okay, I'm getting another question here, so I'm going to grab that. Hang on just a sec. This is related to the last slide. This is, excuse me folks, just a sec. The question is, what is the minimum age and minimum grade and minimum number of participants? Minimum age for FLL, excuse me just a sec, we're going back. Minimum age is 8 years old. Actually, it's officially 9. We do have occasionally 8-year-old students if the team coach is willing to do that, but typically 9 years old is the guideline. The minimum grade it's not relevant; it's just the age that we're worried about. And then the minimum number of participants, they recommend at least 3 students. We are trying to teach teamwork here, so if you have 1 or 2, not really a team. People do up to 2, but it's not really allowed to have a team of 1 student. We really need them to have at least 2. And it's a big bunch of work to do if you're by yourself. So I highly recommend you get at least 2 students on the team. And if that didn't answer your question, please ask another one and I'll get back there. Okay, so that was the answer to the first question that came in. Let's talk about the challenge this year just very quickly. As I hope you all know by now, this is the theme, Senior Solutions. You should have received lots of information about this, and most importantly, you should know about this link at the bottom here about getting to the information from FIRST about the challenge. And we're going to look at that link real quick. This is the page where the Senior Solutions information is posted on the FirstWA website. Matches the link that's in the presentation there. And most importantly, everything you need is here. All the links, this is the mission video. This is just the intro to say, I'm sorry, it's not mission, this is the introduction video. The entire challenge document is available here. This is the project and robot game, rules, all that stuff is in one document. Good little piece about core values. Lots of other resources here for the project, the robot game. You can see the rubrics that the judges use. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then there's a bunch of email address links at the bottom. If you have questions, if you have a problem with the robot missions, any of that stuff, you can get an email off to the right people from here. Typically, if it has to do with the challenge, I'm not the guy you want to talk to. You want to talk to somebody at FIRST because they're the final say in terms of rules and things. And I'll ultimately just send you to them anyway if I don't know the immediate answer. So this is a really important page for you to know about if you don't already, because everything you need for the challenge is here. And again, that link is right here inside the presentation. 14 missions this year, and of course we're talking about improving the life of seniors. demographically a big thing and something that's going to stick around for, I think, 15 to 20 years still. So make sure you understand the challenge, and that a lot of what we're going to talk about for the rest of the night starts out in the document that's at this link, the challenge document. Okay, and on that note, these are the tasks for your team. There's 3 pieces, and one of the pieces has 2 parts. So we have the project, which is a research and presentation task the kids have to do related to the theme. It's described in detail in the challenge documents. They're going to go out and find a problem in the world related to seniors. They're going to figure out a solution. It doesn't have to be real. It's better if it is, but it doesn't have to be like a real invention or anything. Preferably has some connection to reality. Everybody should have a transporter, but it doesn't really belong in an FLL presentation. They're going to research that solution, come up with a way to present that solution to judges, and then you're going to share what you come up with the world. At the regional tournament, you're going to explain do your presentation and explain your how you shared it, and then you're going to hopefully get some awards, or at least get some practice at presenting. Second piece is the robot game, and this has 2 pieces. That's the robot design, which we grade how much of the robot, or how the robot is designed to achieve the game challenge. That happens as a judging part of the event. They go in and show their robot to engineers and folks that are going to look at their robot design. We'll talk about that in a minute. But then there's the robot game, and that's when the kids use the robot to complete the missions on the competition table. Those are 2 separate pieces of the robot game. And then finally, and new starting last year, is this way we evaluate kids for core values. I'll cover these in a little bit more detail later on, but just be aware that these are the 3 key things your kids are working on for the next 8, 12, even 14 weeks, depending on when your competition is. We've already talked about how the team is up to 10 kids, shouldn't be less than 2, and again, 3 is really recommended. Talked about the ages, but I want to point out, though, that you don't have to have a school supporting your FLL team. It can be a church, it can be in a house. I've had hosted my own teams in my garage, done them in middle schools. There are lots of 4-H and Girl Scout and Boy Scout club teams, so don't feel like you have to have an FLL team attached to a school. Many of them are, but not all of them. In fact, we have a very large number of FLL teams that are connected to homeschool students, where they get together and do FLL as part of their curriculum. So don't be limited, and if you want to start a team, don't feel like you have to be at a school. The things that are important to your team besides teamwork, which I've also already labored on about quite a bit, is teaching the students how to go through the experimentation process. Many of us do this by reflex, but a lot of younger kids don't learn it right away, and especially don't deal well with failure. Something breaks, they don't try again, and we want to get them past that. So we want to teach them how to take risks. In FLL, that means, in many cases, trying a robot program, and if it doesn't work, they have to fix it. So you'll see, especially with the younger kids, they'll try a robot program, it won't work, they'll throw up their hands and say, this doesn't work, and they'll just give up, and they'll walk away. And that's the part where you need to sail in as the mentor/coach and say, no, this is just the first step. There's many chances to keep doing this, and we repeat the process and make small changes until it does work. So this is all part of what we hope you're teaching the kids along the way, is how to take a risk, do some experimentation, and then if that fails, go back to the loop. Do some tweaks, do some fixes, change the Legos, change how you're presenting, and then you try again. And hopefully this will become an extremely useful piece of their life going forward. If you can get them to learn how to do this now, you will save them weeks, months of agony as they get older and get through school further along. I've got a couple of questions that have come up, and this relates, unfortunately, again to the previous slide. Can a team be neighborhood kids led by a parent? And the answer is yes. A lot of teams are in neighborhoods, as I mentioned. That's most of the teams that I have been in my garage, and it's only recently that I started helping out at a middle school team, but there's a lot of people that do this in their home. Okay, so back to team mechanics. Just understand this whole cycle. You need to teach them how to take a risk and then have it not work, and that being okay, that it's all right to fail and to try again. In terms of dynamics, we've noticed over the years some behaviors that go along with the ages of the students. Kids under 11, they need more guidance with this whole risk-taking thing. Kids over 11 tend to be a little bit easier to deal with and take risks in those things. So if you have a team full of 9 and 10-year-olds, you may see a lot more of this guidance requirement for risk-taking. If you have a bunch of older kids, then it's probably going to be easier on you. If you have a mixture, you may have to do a good bit of mentoring and coaching just to get the older kids to deal with the younger kids who can't deal with the failure problem. So just be aware of this dynamic and how it will affect how you spend time with the kids. In terms of experience for the students, the FLL program tends to draw lots of students that love Legos, and they come in thinking this is just a Lego club. And many of them have never done robotics, never done programming, and they just want to build stuff. And a key thing you'll have to work on is getting them steered away from just building Legos and understand how Legos fit into the broader program, which is accomplishing these robot missions. The thing that you need to do as a coach, or I recommend you do, is try to figure out what other things the kids are interested in, especially related to the project, how they can help get the project moved along. Try to understand how to get them to give input during discussions. With kids that are really quiet and maybe don't get involved as much, you're going to need to draw that out of them. So much of what's going on for you is merely steering the kids in the right direction, trying to get them to coordinate based on what their skills are and what they like to do, but at the same time giving them structure and saying, I know you don't like to do this, but you gotta. So one thing, if you have really strong personalities, you can make them leaders, you can make them mentors for the other kids, do lots of things to try to get the dynamic of the team worked out so the right people are doing the right jobs. And this is one of the things that may take a couple of years to figure out, and that's okay. But again, be aware of this tendency for Lego builders to gravitate toward FLL, and that you need to get them focused on the whole project and not just building robots. So you, as a coach, if that's who you are, or a mentor, then hang in. I've got a slide for you too. But the coaches lead the team. They don't build the robot. They don't do the project presentation. They don't stay up until 3 in the morning cutting out cardboard. Your job is to make sure the kids know that they have to do that. It is very common for FLL coaches to have zero technical experience, and that's okay. That's in fact very important in some cases because it helps you resist the temptation to dive in and do the project for them, to do the robot programming and everything. I will remind you now that keep in mind that the kids are using Lego robotic parts and pieces. Lego is a very long-standing and experienced company at making toys that kids understand. So you don't have to be a robot expert. All you have to do is make sure they have the Legos and they have a place they can work on them, and they have some structure and they know what they're supposed to be doing, and then just get out of the way. Let them work with the Legos. It's a toy. They're kids. They'll figure it out. So just stand back and let it happen. Hopefully you're patient, and if you're not, you're going to learn to be. That's FLL can, especially as you get closer to the competition time, it can try your patience a little, but that's okay. And it's okay for the kids to fail miserably. They'll learn something from that too. So stand back, let them do their thing, be patient with them. Just make sure you don't give up on them, and make sure you get them to the competition. So be dedicated to this idea of a future goal on the horizon that you're going to meet no matter what state the team is in. And then finally, especially for first-year coaches, you're going to learn a lot about being a coach and a leader for kids. And so don't worry if things don't go the way you expect. They almost certainly won't, and they never do for anybody else either. But just hang in there and make sure they get what they need so that they're safe and they get a chance to get to the competition at the end of the season. On all of those notes, and to highlight the point, this is, again, supposed to be fun, and it's a game, and it's got toys in it, and it's got a bunch of middle school kids. There is no scholarship riding on the outcome of the FL event. Most of the trophies look like the things that you give kids as a pat on the back for participating, so there's not a big, huge trophy like a Stanley Cup or anything you're going to put in your bookcase. So don't take this too seriously. Keep everything in context, that this is supposed to help kids think about science and engineering, not to take home the ashes or anything else here. Just stay focused on having a good time and helping the kids learn something. If the kids get stuck, guide them, but don't fix it for them, because you're not doing them any service at all if you keep jumping in and solving the problem. You're supposed to let them get stuck and then unstuck themselves, and if they don't accomplish that, they're not learning how to do it. And if you get all the way through the season with them learning nothing, then there's really no point in doing the whole program in the first place. So help them understand that this is a process, that they're learning things, they're becoming smarter, they're doing things that engineers get to do. Frankly, they're doing things that I pay engineers 5-6 figures for sometimes to get done. So they're doing amazing things at their age, and help them stay focused on that, and a lot less on we have to get the trophy at the regional competition, because that may ruin it, and very likely will ruin the whole point of the program. Competition is great. It's a wonderful motivator. We recognize that. That's why we have competitions. But that's also, we do competitions so that there's a goal on the horizon that everybody has to shoot toward. Nuts and bolts. This is questions about how to run the team, actual mechanics here. So we recommend 2 hours twice a week. That's a really good guideline that myself and many other coaches have arrived at over the years. Some teams meet every day. Some teams meet once a week, and it really depends on your kids, what they can do, what they can participate. And you may get kids in and out depending on the day, whatever. But about 4 hours a week during the build season, 8 to 12 weeks, is a really good target to hit. Weekends, of course, are okay, entirely up to you. You will drift very, very quickly off of schedule. There is a schedule in the coach manual. I think it's the last half of the book, has kind of a weekly guideline about what you're supposed to accomplish. So I highly recommend you look at that and kind of measure where you are. In about a week or two, we're going to start publishing the regional competition assignments, so you'll know when your deadline is, and then you can figure out, back solve from there. But I do want to make you aware that as the competition gets closer, the pace picks up, and just be prepared for that. And keep in mind what you have to accomplish as the time starts to count down. One of the things that I really want to emphasize too, though, is don't feel like you should lock the kids in the classroom for 4 hours a week for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, and then just so you can get stuff done. I would much prefer a loose presentation that's barely practice, and a robot that does 1 or 2 missions, and that's as good as they could get. But to have the kids have been out in the field and gone to a senior center, met a bunch of seniors, and then gone off and gone to an engineering company that makes wheelchairs, and gone out and experienced engineering and science firsthand, because all the projects and the robot stuff is great, and it's a framework upon which the kids can learn things. But we really do want to get them out there to meet people and understand the broader world and how science and engineering ties together in it, because that's really a big part of the inspiration, we hope. So if you can get out there and do at least one tour, or get out or have someone come to your class and give a presentation about the challenges that seniors face. This year they're encouraging you go find a senior partner that can help in class. I mean, really, really consider that. It's a very important part of this program, is to get kids connected to what's going on out there in the world. And then finally, as I've already attested to on previous slides, the kids are the most important part of FLL. I know you all know that, but I feel remiss if I don't say it out loud. Make sure that they're getting something out of this, because otherwise your time is wasted, and we don't want to waste theirs or your time. And if that's not happening because of one dynamic or another, make sure you get in touch and cry for help, so we can jump in and get you back on the rails. And it happens every year, and we're happy to do it. That's one of the reasons we're all here and volunteering. So steer, but don't get down there and push the gas pedal. Just make sure the kids are heading the right direction, and make sure they're having a good time, and most of your job is done. This slide that I've got up now, Screws and Nails, is about the actual things, the tactics of having a team. One of the key things that I found over the years is having really good Lego organization makes the kids way more efficient in terms of the iteration process of building and testing. If your Legos are in a big bucket and they spend 90% of their time searching for that one little gear or wheel or thing, something that they have to have for the robot, that's all that they do, and then they barely get anywhere building and testing. And so if you can keep your Legos organized, make sure your kit stays in one piece and doesn't get disassembled, it's much better for the kids and for you in terms of using your time wisely. The things you'll need to do an FLL program, of course, a computer for the programming, if you haven't figured that out already, because you're doing robot programming, the kids are. Multiple computers are better, so that kid teams can go out and do programming independently and maybe work on separate missions. You need a connection to the internet, very, very important for the research part of the project and some other things. It's a really good idea to have a work area that's 3 times the size of your FLL table, if at all possible, so that there's room for the kids to walk around. They need to, as you can see here, lean over the table and retrieve robot parts and reset pieces on the table. Also very good if the playfield can stay up. In other words, you don't have to take it apart every week and hide it someplace. All the teams I've ever had, we had to take it down, so it's the way most people do it. But if you can find a place to leave your table up while you're during the season, it'll be much easier and quicker because you can get in there and get to work right away. But make sure it doesn't get disturbed while it's sitting and you're not there, because it's really easy for kids to wander past and go, "Ooh, Legos," and they just start taking stuff apart. So definitely err on the side of protecting your kit instead of leaving it up if that's necessary. Make sure you have legs for your table. The little plastic Costco tables work. They're a little unsteady because of the weight of the FLL table, because it's a 4x8 sheet of plywood. But then in this case, this picture you're looking at is one of my old teams, and we're in a wood shop at a middle school, and we're using one of the work tables, and that works great. So make sure it's stable so that it doesn't fall over. It's heavy, and it can really hurt somebody if it goes over, so be careful there. Okay. If you're attached to a school, here's some hints that we've also learned over the years. If you're bringing volunteers or mentors in to talk to your team, worry about the background check process. It can take a while. So if you want to bring a senior in a couple of weeks, get them into the office or send them the forms so that you can get the form into the school system and get them checked out for security, because a lot of times volunteers have to go through a screening process before they can come on campus. So don't forget that. Purchasing systems, in terms of if you're trying to register right now as the time is getting thin, they can take a long time to get payments made and do all kinds of stuff. So give yourself enough time to get payment made for whatever you're trying to do with FLL. That includes renting buses or anything that requires a payment from a school district account to someone else. Also be aware that PayPal and a lot of other things don't work through schools sometimes, and so you may have to come up with an alternate method, even use your own personal credit card and get reimbursed. So try to think through your purchasing needs well before you actually have to make a purchase if you're working through a school. If you're installing the FLL software on school computers, you have to go through the IT department. I've never met a school that you can install your own software on the computers, and that can take many, many days. I was delayed 3 weeks starting my FLL program one year because the IT department was backed up. So as soon as possible, get that software in the hands of the IT group so that they can evaluate it and then get it installed. They're usually nice people. They're just usually really busy. And then on the same vein, you want to be really nice to the janitor and people that clean up after you, because often on the Saturday before the competition, you need to spend an extra couple hours on the whole program, and the only person that has access to the room that you need to get into is the janitor. And if they knew who you are and you've bought them a couple of coffees or brought them donuts one day for all the cleaning up they do after you, they may see your face and say, "Hey, I know that guy, I'll let him in." But if they don't know who you are, you're not getting in the building. So get to know who the janitor is, even get their phone number if possible. Usually they are fantastic people too, and just let them know you're on an FLL team, you may need access over the weekend. They can tell you what you have to do to make sure that gets done, if there's a form or anything to fill out, but get to know who these people are, because they can be the make or break for getting ready for the competition. And it's directly connected to what I just said. There's that bullet there about plan ahead for any after hours or weekend facility access, because obviously security is a big deal at the schools. And finally, arrange transportation ahead of time. If you're planning on taking a bus and getting kids to go from the school to the competition on the Saturday, or if you need a school bus on Saturday, that also can take a lot of time. Resources get thin if you're in the middle of an athletic season, so plan that now. And I know you're going to need the regional competition dates for that, so as soon as you figure out where you're going to go for your competition, get your transportation sorted out right away. Okay, so we talked about coaches and some of the things you have to worry about as a coach. The next thing is mentors. This is a much shorter process. As I mentioned already, you want to bring people into the class to enrich the experience the kids are having with the challenge. And it's anybody that you can get to come in that knows anything about the challenge, or even if it's just somebody who has some background in robotics, or an engineer or a scientist, or somebody's really good at marketing to help with the presentation stuff. It doesn't have to be a technical person, but anybody you can get into the class to help the kids do better at what they're doing and frame all this effort better is a good thing. And don't leave this off at the end, because this is a really big part of what the kids are going to take away from the program. And then sometimes you can't get rid of them once they come. They become full-time volunteers. They see first. Maybe they want to start their own program, and maybe they'll come and help you all the time. So don't forget the mentoring part if you don't have mentors already. A mentor can be a parent from one of the students who just comes in and makes sure they're keeping an eye on stuff in the other room while you're working on the project or whatever. So even mentors can be parents. Don't wait too long to get help if you're going to need it. This slide is just examples. We're not going to stay here. Just remember it's here if you want to come back and look at it later if you need some ideas for mentors. Team budget. This is something that evolves every year. We put it up just so you have some ballpark. If you haven't signed up for your team already, these are some things to think about, or maybe you've already spent some of this money but not all of it. Most importantly, if you don't have a team, you're going to be into about $300 just to get your FLL team registration and the challenge kit. That's all the robot parts. If you have no robot at all, you can buy a special kit from FLL called, it's the FLL Robotic Kit, which is 2 kits from Lego Education plus a special license for the software, so all the kids can use it. That's $420. Hopefully you have robot kits already, but if you don't, we'll talk about the FLL kit in a few minutes. I'll show you some pictures and tell you what's in there. First, always collect $20 or more for shipping and handling, depending on what you're getting. So you're about $750 to get started on your team. Once you have the robots, this is not a recurring cost. Oops, there's a picture of the kit. So that's just for stuff for National FLL, and then down here in the light blue, it typically costs about $85 in lumber to put a table together. It can vary widely. Maybe you know somebody, maybe you get cheap lumber, whatever. But keep in mind you need to make that table. Some people don't. Some people run their kit on the floor. They build a wood border so that the robot has walls to bump up against, and that is a way to get this done. Not as good, but it can work if you can't afford the table. Then there's the $75 fee that First Washington charges to compete in a regional. And this is a really big confusing point related to what I was telling you before, where we have the national organization and then we have the state organization. When we do the state registration sign up for you to go to your figure out what competition you're going to attend, we're going to charge you $75 additional. That covers, actually doesn't cover, it sort of offsets the cost of janitors, facility rental, food for the volunteers, shirts for the volunteers, the awards, all the stuff that we have to pay for to get these events put on. We have 400 teams this year. We're going to be probably running about a dozen events statewide just for FLL. And so that's what the $75 is for. It is not going to National FLL. It's coming to the state to put our competitions on. So be aware that there's an additional $75 you have to come up with to compete. And it's a separate fee from all the national stuff. And then finally, we throw $200 miscellaneous in for pizza and team T-shirts. Entirely up to you, total discretionary funds. But when you add all that up, it's about $1,100. In terms of funding, you can charge the kids, you divide that, whatever your total is by the number of kids you have, charge them all that fee. You can have fundraisers. You can ask the ASB at your school for money. There's grants. There's a bunch of grants. There were a bunch of grants available. Most of that stuff is kind of wrapping up now. But anyway, that's a good working budget to look at as a guideline. This is a picture of the robot kit that you get from FLL. If you haven't purchased one, or you thought about it but you haven't done it yet, this is what comes in the box. You get this 9648 kit, which has a bunch of extra wheels and gears and Technic bricks. Very good kit to have if you don't have it already. And then this is the 9797. That's got the NXT brick in it, which is kind of tucked away in the corner here. A fundamental set of sensors. There's your motors, wheels, and then all the some more Technic parts. You don't have to have either one of these. It's not critical that you buy these specific kits or you buy anything from FLL. If you have a huge bucket of Technic parts and you've got a couple NXTs from everybody's Christmas in the past, that's fine. You can use those. There's no limit on what you use as long as it's made by Lego. And you can use any Legos. There's not a special version of the NXT brick. It's all fine. The only thing that makes the FLL kit kind of cool is that you get 10 seats of this software, which means every student on the team can install a copy on their computer and use it to program the robot. If you buy a retail version of the NXT kit, you only get one license. And on paper, you're supposed to go back to FLL and buy as many licenses as you need for each kit, and they're $80 a piece. So that's the one thing that's special about the FLL kit, the FLL NXT kit, is you get this special team license system. You can buy site licenses and do all kinds of crazy things with FLL software, but just keep in mind that's really the distinguishing feature. There is a link on this slide for the video demos that Lego offers about this kit and all the parts in it, and you can certainly follow that and spend hours boggling at the Legos if you wish. Okay, we'll take a quick break. I haven't seen any more questions come up, so let me know if there's anything you need, and this is a good time to pause if you need to take a breath like I do. So any questions? Everybody doing okay? I think I'm watching pretty carefully and I haven't seen any additional questions come up. So, okay, we'll keep going. We're almost an hour in, which is me. Okay, so let's talk about how your team is evaluated at the event. Everybody goes to this competition I keep alluding to. You're going to go to one regional in the state somewhere, hopefully close to your home. That's our goal. When you get there, you're going to do a project presentation for the project stuff. You're going to get a robot design and construction evaluation for the robot, putting the robot together and designing it, and then you're going to have a core values session. All three of these are judges sitting in a room with your students and asking questions and the kids presenting. The evaluations are entirely subjective. There's a group, we go out and recruit a bunch of volunteers. We teach them how to be judges with a very similar process to what you're going through, except it's a different presentation, obviously. And then they use a rubric. And you get to see these rubrics. I'll talk about them a little bit more, but just so you know, if you want to see how what the judges are using to evaluate your kids, there's a link right there, right on that page I told you was so important, at the Senior Solutions page. There's your challenge document, there's your robot, your project, the robot game, and right below that is the rubrics and awards. If you click on that, you get to see the document that I'm going to make 1 million copies of and hand out to our judges. This is it right here. They're going to have this in their hands and they're going to circle this stuff. So if you want guidelines for how to help the kids prepare, go print out this rubric. It's 3 pages, one per thing, one per topic. We've got the robot design. That's what the robot design judges use. We have the project, and we've got the core values. So this is the document right here, and it's a great way to figure out, you know, have I led the kids down a road that's going to get them to do all these things? And so I highly recommend you check that out. So again, this is on the, oops, I wasn't supposed to do that, oopsie. But anyway, so on the challenge page you have links to the judging, and that will solve a lot of your problems if you check them out. It'll just make it easier and smoother for the kids, so it's not a surprise during the evaluation process. The judges, after doing all these interviews, will assign the awards based on these interviews, and as I just pointed out, you go to the judging site and you can get those rubrics. We did used to give away a teamwork award, and now that's called core values. We'll talk about that in much more detail shortly. In fact, we're going to talk about it now. So this is a list of all the awards that your students are going to be eligible for from the judging process and from all the things they're going to do at the event. I'm going to just give you a quick overview here. Important things to note. There is a regional champion award. This has nothing to do with what the robot is doing on the field. This has nothing to do with the robot game that happens in the afternoon. This has everything to do with how the students do on the during the judging process in the morning. As I mentioned before, there's those 3 topics, color-coded. You see the nice connection here. So we've got project, robot, and core values. For each of the 3 things they're working on, there are 3 awards. So as you can see, there are 9 opportunities for a team to win an award at these events. Just from those 3 things. They can win, and then they can win the Regional Champions Award. They can win the Robot Performance Award, which is how the robot performs on the field during the game. And then finally, every event gets a judge award. And in that case, the judges get to make up an award for the students. So you figure there's a dozen awards here. If you go to an event with 24 teams, your chances are almost 50-50 for getting an award, because we only give away 1 judged award per team. The only way to get 2 awards at an FLL competition is to win the robot game and win one of these awards, which are part of the judging process. But otherwise, everybody's only going to get 1 award. We practice what's called sharing the wealth, and it's because we want to recognize as many kids as possible. So this is a very high-level overview of all the awards that are available. This is also on that rubric site. I just showed you the rubrics. This is on the awards thing. So again, if you need to refer back to it, you can use the presentation, or you can look at the descriptions of all these awards I just showed you on screen. All this material is right there on that challenge website. Okay. We're going to focus specifically on the things you guys are doing, and this is a time when I get into the mechanics and the nuts and bolts of the actual things the kids have to do when they get to the competition, and then we'll talk about the competition itself. That's what's coming up. Okay, so during the project presentation, we've brushed on this lightly. They need to go out and find that problem. They need to create a solution to solve that problem. They need to share that solution with the community, and then they're going to bring all those things together as a 5-minute presentation for the judges. This is one of the 3 judging sessions the kids are going to have. Again, the other ones are robot design and core values. So this is the project. The hardest part of this whole thing, of the whole project, is picking that problem topic, getting those kids up to 10 of them to agree on what they're all going to spend time researching and solving. So I really desperately recommend that you find that problem as early in the season as possible. Get the kids to agree. The way you should do your first couple of meetings, if you haven't already, is build your field kit, figure out what the team name is, and then figure out what your problem for the project is, because you're going to need to pick away at this. The kids are going to resist because it's research. It feels like homework. It's not fun like working with the robot. So the earlier you figure out that problem, the better off you're going to be just from everybody's sanity. Okay. When you do your presentation and you bring all these results together for the judges, you get to choose whatever format you like. I highly recommend you use some humor, some skits, do something that is not just the equivalent of standing up in front of a room doing a PowerPoint like I'm doing for you, because if I wasn't talking, I'd be dozing off right now. So by all means, try to do something fun. It's good for the judges, because if they've been sitting there watching presentations all day, they get a little distracted or just worn out. So if there's something fun for them to watch, they're going to remember your team better. But more importantly, a little humor, a little skit is so much easier for the kids to work on because it's fun. And don't go too high tech. I'll cover that in a second, but do something simple. Just build stuff out of cardboard. Make props. Have the kids wear flowers in their hair. Whatever lets them be creative and take away the general boredom that goes with making presentations. It'll help the kids, and it'll help the judges, and it'll help you, because it'll give them something to work on that's not writing a bunch of stuff and doing research. And it also helps them get through the project and solution process, because while you're doing that, you should be thinking about how you're going to present that information. So if you're thinking about a solution that involves launching a rocket ship to the moon versus building some cardboard cutouts, you should be picking the cardboard cutout version, because that's something you can actually attain. And then finally, if you haven't received it, you should, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, then email me. But in the coach materials that should have come to you by mail with the coach manual is a DVD. On that DVD are a number of examples of what the presentations look like from other students. They are video recordings of students giving a presentation in front of a judge panel. I, once again, highly recommend you look at a couple of those and show them to the students so that they know what the final target looks like. That video will save you hours of explanation. Just throw that sucker in, run 5 or 10 minutes of videos of kids doing the presentation, and all the light bulbs will go off on top of their head. If you don't have a DVD, get one. You can email FLLteams@firstwa.org or me or whatever, but we got to get you one of those DVDs so you can show it to the kids early. Because again, the project is usually the biggest speed bump in this whole thing, because they want to work on Legos and robots and they don't want to do this. And so you need to get lots of materials out in front of them, get them thinking about it, and then pick away at it at every meeting and opportunity you have. Okay, enough on the project, except for this slide, which is more on the project. So in terms of the performance for the judges, one of the most important things you can do is finish early in practice. And one of the best ways to do that practice is to have the kids stand in front of a video camera, give the presentation, and then show it to them. One of the best things anybody can do for presenting practice is to see themselves presenting, to see what it looks like to the rest of the people in the audience, because many people get really excited, nervous, crazy about presenting. It's difficult for them to stay focused, much less stay coherent. And if they can see those things happen on a video, they will correct them. Often they will correct them much faster. Not always, but usually. You are much better off with a simplistic presentation that doesn't have a lot of props, mildly funny, but that you've practiced the heck out of, than showing up with this really flashy, showy thing that barely works and that nobody's touched, but it should look great. Because that highly polished one will fit into the rubric a lot better, and it'll make the kids look slick, and they'll feel comfortable because they've practiced, and then it'll go off better, and they'll hit all the points. And so less and practice instead of more and no practice. Key success point for the project. The other thing that is of urgent importance is do not let them do a PowerPoint presentation on a computer. Now, someone on this call will do this anyway, despite my better advice, and you will try to roll a card in with a TV monitor or a projector and a laptop and run video and blah, 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 and it'll fail, and the kids will lose their entire 5-minute window. And because it's only 5 minutes, if they have to plug things in and set stuff up and do projections and all that, it'll suck up a lot of their time that a lot of times you don't account for. The minute that door opens, your 5-minute clock starts to tick. So go really, really simple. One of my students one year was our PowerPoint presentation, and what that meant was he had a shirt on that said PowerPoint across the chest, and then we had our slides printed out on cardboard, and he just stood there, and as they progressed through, he was tossing the slides off to the side. It was funny, it was low tech, and it didn't require any setup at all. He just slid in there and was ready to go. So think about solutions like that make your life much simpler, and beware of AV. And this mistake is made by FRC students in high school all the way down to the junior FLL. Don't overthink this. Okay, one more reminder for the rubric there, which I've already shown you. Don't forget to look at those. Again, only 3 pages, really quick, easy way to evaluate how you're doing. This is a picture of what a presentation looks like. These kids have gone to the lengths of having a costume, and they've got a little prop-up slide, which is great. It's also a good thing to have handouts for the judges, just a way for them to remember you, maybe take some notes on. So this is what a good, well-thought-out presentation looks like. Notice that none of the kids have paper cards they're reading from because they've practiced. So this is what it looks like. They're standing in the classroom talking to some judges, which are out of frame, of course. So this is where you're heading. So the second component of the judging is the robot design. The thing that we're looking for, the thing that the robot judges are looking for, is how the kids made decisions that led to the robot design. This is a much less formal thing than the project. They're just going to walk in with the robot. There's going to be a game table sitting there with the kit set up on it and a couple of folks standing around, and it's like 10 minutes sort of open forum. The kids walk in, they talk to the judges, answer questions. The judges are trained to ask things that the kids can't answer with a yes or no. They have to know something. So the only real preparation for this is for all the students on the team, and we'd love to see the whole team in both project, core value, or in all 3, project, core values, and robot. We want a whole team there, and all of them should have some understanding of the robot, and it's okay to have a couple that are more specialized, but the coaches want to see, or excuse me, the judges want to see that the whole team has worked on the robot, and this is their opportunity to figure that out. Keep in mind, though, that this robot is the one that's performing your game mission, the 2.5 minutes on the field that's part of the actual robot competition part of the day, and so all the kids should understand that. The judges may ask a little bit of questions about the game this year, the rules and things. So just keep that in mind too. So, oops, excuse me. Let's see. If you have any questions for technical stuff, don't hesitate to follow the links that I've got on this page. There's an FAQ on the First While website that I wrote and try to update every year. Tons and tons of NXT resources online. So if the kids get stuck or you need some technical help, just go to the web. It's all there. And you can always ask us questions too. Just email me and I'll try to get you connected with somebody who knows what they're doing. I sort of jumped ahead a little bit. This slide just summarizes that you're going to be in front of a judge panel with a table, and it's interactive. You don't have to walk in there with source code printed out. Those things tend to fall pretty flat on the judges. They just want to know that the kids worked on it and they can answer questions about general programming stuff. It's just mostly to make sure everybody got a chance to work on the robot. But don't feel like you have to prepare anything major for this. Spend all that time on the project. This is a picture of what robot design judging looks like. A couple of engineers, table in a room, another classroom, and the kids are in there fully decked out in their costumes just explaining how the robot works. Because we have tables that are ready to go, they can demonstrate how their missions work. And that usually goes over pretty well. The judges like that a lot. So don't let the kids just walk in there and say, yeah, this is a robot and it does cool stuff and we love it. Make sure that they're ready to run missions and do some demos. Okay, I've got a question here. I saw a team make a table using foam board. Is this acceptable, or are there disadvantages with using such a table, i.e., would robot behave the same as when on a wooden table? That's a great question. I have a foam board. I use it for demonstrations because it's a lot easier to carry around, frankly, than the big wood one, and it works fine. The key things with it are that it's got a smooth top and that the foam is not really warped. So to answer your specific question, yes, the foam can affect how the robot works, although it doesn't have to. If you pick a nice flat piece of foam and it's thick and you've taken good care of it, it'll be just as good as having the wood table. And I have mine split down the middle, so there's a seam and it folds. So when I fold it up, there's a little gap, but typically the FLL mat covers that seam appropriately enough that the robot can navigate. That said, part of FLL is learning how to make robust design, which is why we do this robot design judging session. And the robot should be flexible enough to handle variations in the tables, because even one wood table to the next can be slightly variable. And especially if you're first year, you probably won't spend a lot of time on this, but going forward, if you keep doing this, the kids will learn how to make the robot more flexible for the environment. And that is a key thing for them to understand. So the foam tables are okay for practice, and there's a lot of people using them, myself included. Let's see, did I get that one? All right, second, I got another question here. What if you have children on your team that are special needs, regarding everyone on the team needing to be present? What if these special kids know the robot and the project but can't present? That's no problem. The judges are trained for special needs team members. They will try to bring them in, but there's no checkbox on the rubric about punishing people if there's a special needs child on there. I promise you that. In fact, they will treat them very well, and they know what to do if those kids are involved and have trouble talking. It's all understood ahead of time that happens, and it happens on a lot of teams. We have kids that are mainstreaming now more than ever, so that all is no problem at all. And please do encourage those kids to be part of it, even if an adult has to be in the room with that child and they have to stand together. That's no problem. But if they can't present, that's okay too. Don't worry about it. If the coaches ask, or if the judges ask, you can just say, we have another team member, but he's not able to present because of his learning challenges, and so that's okay. The coaches or the judges know all about that, so it's no problem. Okay. Next question, will you introduce yourself at the end of the session? Logged in a few minutes late. The answer is yes. I will introduce myself now to save us, because I'll probably forget. My name is Kevin Reed. I am the state partner for FLL. It's my responsibility to be the conduit between the national FLL program and everybody in the state of Washington who needs help with FLL. I'm a volunteer. I do this in the evenings and weekends and stuff, like a lot of people in the First Washington program. And if you want more information about FLL or First WA or anything, just stay on and I'll answer those questions after the presentation. One more question. Do we need to tell the jury beforehand? I'm assuming that question relates, this is Christina, that question relates to your special needs student. That's fine. When you go in, you're welcome to mention it to them. If they don't ask, then they won't know any better, and that's fine. It's entirely up to you to handle it the way you're comfortable with, but I will again tell you there's no downside if you have a special needs child, to either involve them with help or to not involve them. It's entirely up to you, whatever works best for you and them. But they are, again, the judges are trained for that situation, and they know how to work around the rubrics and everything for it. Okay. Good, we had a big spate of questions. You guys must have all woken up for some reason. That's great. All right, moving on. So that's robot design judging photograph. So this is now the third section of the 3 ways that you're evaluated by the judges. This is core values. We started doing this last year, and so I will, as I did last year, ask for some patience. If it seems a little rough or weird, this is nationally, everybody's trying to figure out how to do this, and the reason for that is there is nothing you can really do to prepare for this third judging session. It is intended entirely to measure your team's ability to work as a team, to work together. So the goal is not to have them prepare, except to learn how to be a good team. So there's no presentation to do, there's no pre-prep. We're not going to tell you what's going to happen. The only thing that we do reveal is that there is an activity that the team will have to do as a group when they get into the room, and the judges are simply going to watch. There's going to be a time limit for them to finish, and it's not going to be difficult. It'll usually, last year we did 2 things. At the regional we had about 25 printed color slides that were the steps in building an apple pie, because we had food factor last year. So they had a picture of a seed and a picture of a farm field and a picture of a finished pie and some apples and ingredients, and they were just randomly arranged in a stack and handed to them, and they said, okay, you have, I think, 7 minutes to put these in order. And there was a lot of ambiguity, because you had apple trees and you had growing the seed, but you had farm dirt and water, and you had to figure out, does the seed and the farm, does the dirt and the water have to come before the seed, or does the seed, and it really didn't matter. There was no right answer. We wanted to watch the kids, how they figured out how to answer the question. how they work through the ambiguity. And so this whole thing is designed to see how they solve problems together under pressure. And the ones that yell at each other and the ones that get frustrated or kids walk out or there's crying clearly have little trouble with the core values. The ones that quickly get organized and they're smooth and they're working together and they're helping each other, that's what we're looking for. That's the behavior that this judged award is supposed to encourage. So it's intentionally nebulous. There's not a lot of information about it because there's nothing to do except teach your kids how to work together well. That's it. And at the championships, we had a Lego deal where there was two identical buckets of Legos. They were separated by a screen, and we let the teams divide themselves in half. One team built a picture. They built something out of Legos that was given to them by the judges, for example, a bridge. And then they would build it, and then they had to describe to the other half of the team how to build it without that other half seeing what they had built. So again, an opportunity for communication, testing, and all that stuff. So that's it. That's what core values is. Just tell your kids not to yell at each other. That's a good first step for preparing for core values. But again, most of this is just how well they work together as a team. The other thing about core values is we ask other volunteers at the event throughout the day if they've seen good or bad behavior. And by good and bad, I mean adhering to the core values. So definitely look at your coach manual. Inside of the first cover there, where they're all listed, go over them with the kids. Try to emphasize how important they are because it really does matter. There is an award that's associated with core values, and you want them to know that. Okay, there's usually a lot of questions about this, and I'm happy to answer them if anybody is curious about what this really is. But this is brand new, and it changes a little bit every year. The second year, we're going to try it again and see what happens. And it's a third thing for your kids to do in the morning. We talked about the Champions Award. Remember, this is kind of the Uber Award. It's for the team that has great core values, great project, great robot design, but has nothing to do with the robot performance in the field directly. It can be a differentiator if there's two great teams and one team is more successful with the robot. We'll use that as kind of a tiebreaker, but it is the least important, most important thing for Champions Award. Champions Award winners have a definite ticket to the championship or to the championship for the state. So if they win this award, they're definitely going to go. So this is a graphic to explain what the tournament day looks like for your team. And this is just a calendar schedule. Forgive me for using PowerPoint's tools. I just happen to think this is kind of cool. I have this all typed out, but I love the graphics part because it tells the story much better. So here I am trying to tell the story better. You're going to probably arrive sometime around 8:30, 9 o'clock. You're going to get signed in, and the first thing you do is go to your pit, which is a standard 4x6 table. Very likely it will have a power cord right next to it so you can plug a computer in. Once you get that done, you should have a schedule in your hands when you signed in that tells you when your 3 judging sessions are in the morning. So between 9 and noon, and these times can vary slightly, but between 9 and noon, you're going to be allocated to 3 judge sessions, usually not right next to each other, but sometimes they are. And that means that you need to be in your pit a few minutes before you're scheduled, whatever the schedule says you're going to be there to do, so that a volunteer can come down and grab you and take you to that room. If that volunteer doesn't show up, you should go to the room on your own. But we typically have a bunch of high school kids that will help the teams get to where they need to be on schedule. Your job is to make sure you're in your pits 5 minutes before that time or 10 minutes before that time so they can lead you to where you have to go, and you're standing outside the judge room door ready to go when the bell dings. At about noon, all the judging is done, which is usually the more stressful part of the day for most teams. You guys will have a lunch, and the only thing left is the robot game, which is in the afternoon, 12:30 to 4-ish, depending on the size of your event. We usually do awards sometime after 4 o'clock. It can be as early as 3:30. It can be as late as 5, depending again on the size, and then we go home. So that's the whole day, sort of in a bunch of little cool-looking 3D blocks. This is the text version, so obviously much more boring. But important stuff to mention again, the regional competitions begin in December. They end in very early February, and then we have our championships. There are some events that will go Saturday and Sunday. You will be attending one of those days. This is new this year, so you may have to go to a Sunday event. You may have to go to a Saturday event, depending on what happens. We've grown so big that we've had to split some of our tournaments into multi-day events, but they're identical, so you'll be a Saturday or a Sunday, but not both. By all means, bring friends and relatives and family. Super cool to have lots of folks there cheering them on. We do our best to show what's going on the tables. It's kind of hard to see sometimes, but we project it on screens and do big stuff. So definitely bring friends in public. As I've already mentioned in the previous slide, your pit area is where you're going to spend a lot of time, especially in the morning during the judging process, going to and from. Do your presentations, and then in the afternoon we're doing robot contests, have award ceremony, and then everything wraps up in February for the state. This is a little less tentative schedule than it was a couple weeks ago, but this is what the competition schedule looks like. If you've done this before, you will remember that we used to do all of our tournaments on the same weekend, usually the first week of December. Last year was the last time we're really able to do that because of the amount of teams. We were stretched too thin, and it started to affect event quality. So this year we're trying a new model. Notice again we've got some Saturday, Sunday events starting the first week of December, but then these events go all the way through January into early February. And a number of these dates are still flexible. They may change slightly, but do be aware you may be competing in February, which could affect, I'm sure, some of your start times and things. We are keeping all this information online, and as it gets updated, you can go there, and as I mentioned before, very soon you will get a list of available events. And where this year will probably allow teams to make a choice, kind of a first and a second and a third choice for where they want to go and when they want to compete. And so just be aware that this is coming up in a few weeks, and you'll see an email from me, and then I'll tell you it's coming in a week, and then it'll be kind of a first come first serve thing. But anyway, this is a whole new thing this year. If you've never seen it before, it's not new to you, but if you have, then it is a lot different than last year. Okay, I've got a question. Can you specify a preference for Saturday versus Sunday? And I think I just answered that. That is a yes. If you have, especially for religious reasons, Saturday or Sunday don't work for you, you should certainly let me know. I will put a note. I put a way for you to send me that kind of information during the registration process. So, and the registration, if I didn't make it clear before, you pay your national registration to FLL, and then you're going to pay a $75 competition fee to First Washington through a separate registration process on the firstwa.org website. And it's at that point you'll be choosing your regional, paying us $75, and then if there's any special considerations that we should be aware of, like religious constraints or whatever for a Saturday or Sunday day, or conflicts or whatever, that's when you will tell me that you need some special scheduling. Okay. What to bring to the tournament? Your team information sheet. You have no idea what that is. Don't worry about it. You're going to get a blank sheet from me by email. You fill it out. It basically has a place for you to put a picture of your students, talk about your team a little bit, and it's something you're going to hand to the judges when you walk into the judge room. You'll need 3 copies, 1 for each judge panel: core values, project, and robot design. There's also a consent release form. Again, don't worry about it right now, but I'll send you this. You'll need to fill this out, 1 for every person on the team, adults and students, and bring it signed with you to the event, because it's a first requirement for, hold harmless and photography and all that stuff. So I'll get that out to you guys relatively soon. You can have parents of the kids sign it. They're supposed to have their parents sign it for them, and then any adult that's part of the team, not the public, but part of the team, has to fill it out and sign it as well. And we'll collect those at registration time. Extra robot batteries and chargers are really important. You'll usually run through a couple batteries during the day. It's okay to have just regular AAAs, but many of the FLL kits come with a rechargeable battery, so bring extras or your recharger for that. You need at least 1 computer there to make changes to your robot. Food, drink, and snacks are usually okay. Most venues, you'll get information for the specific venue you're assigned to. A lot of them require that you eat in a cafeteria, not in the pit, so that's the only caveat, but a lot of times they'll let you bring food on site. We recommend an extension cord and power strip. We try to get power to every pit table where you're going to be setting up your computer and your robot for work. Sometimes, though, you have to share, so we may need your help extending that power connector. And then if you want, you can bring your field setup kit. Sometimes you might get asked to bring it as spares for some of the activities we're using. So if you can bring it or want to bring it, you're welcome to. There's usually space to set it up for practice. We usually have practice tables in the pits, but a lot of teams bring their own so they can focus on it. We do ask, though, that you at least spend a little bit of that time sharing your kit with other teams. Okay, I've got a question. If you coach 2 teams, can you ask to be put on the same day for the competition? Absolutely. This goes back to the scheduling of competitions. This happens every year. We have a coach who's got 3 teams, and then they end up getting sent to 2 different regionals on the same day or something. It happens. If I don't know that you're the coach, sometimes I'll miss it. You absolutely just tell me, which one you want to go to of the ones I've assigned, and I'll juggle it around so that you're together and at the same place. Hopefully I'll catch it, but I don't always. This is a picture of what the pits look like, again, just to prepare you for what you're getting into here. Notice these tables, the kids are all milling around. Each of their robot kits are set up. There's power on the floor. There's cords everywhere, nice, great trip hazards. But anyway, they're usually taped down and it's relatively safe. But just be aware, this is where the pit is. It's separate from the competition field. It's usually in another room or adjoining, and you can usually get between here and the competition field pretty readily. And then you'll have time in the morning when you're not at the judge sessions to do some practice. Even on the competition tables that are used in the afternoon, we'll have practice tables in the pits for you to use, or hopefully there's some teams that are sharing theirs. And most, if not all, competitions, you get a whole table to yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody, so you'll have plenty of room to spread out. Okay, we sort of covered this judging process. I want to highlight again, there are lots of high school volunteers that come and get you at the pits, so the key is to make sure you're at your pit table 10 minutes before you're supposed to be at your judge sessions. You'll have a schedule in hand for that, so you'll know when to be there, but you need to get the kids herded there to make sure that all their stuff is ready to go, especially if you have props for the project or robot parts or whatever. You need to get that all ready there and be ready for those high school kids to come get you. And then the afternoon, just some specifics about the competition. You'll notice that during an FLL competition, there are two tables joined together. You may have noticed you've got that funnel with the balls in it that looks like it reaches over the table edge, and that's because in the competition situation there are two tables running simultaneously, so one robot on both sides, and this year there is a activity that the two robots share. And another thing to note is that there's a table, a small table right next to the big table, and almost all competitions have this so that you can store things there. You can store extra robot parts. You can you have a place to set things so that it doesn't clog up the competition table itself. You'll notice there's usually a queue. So for the schedule in the afternoon, if you're supposed to run at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or something, you'll usually be queued up by those same high school students 10 to 15 minutes before your event, so you're in line and ready to go if the schedule moves around. And then you only get 3 opportunities on the table. You'll go through 3 sessions, 3 chances for the robot to run, and then the best score determines how you're ranked in the robot game in the afternoon. Oh, and we don't use Bluetooth. Sorry, that was one other thing. Bluetooth is disallowed because of crosstalk and some other things. If you haven't seen it already, this is what the kit looks like from the top. We use this image to train referees, but this is the robot mission tables and for the senior solutions. This is the base over here in the lower left, and this is the only place the students can touch the robot. Everything else that happens on the field here is fully autonomous, which means the students have to make a program so that when they press the orange button over here to go and run their program, the robot goes out and does all that it needs to do by itself with no intervention from a human. If they have to touch the robot, they're going to lose a little bit of their field penalty points. These are freebies they get at the beginning, and if they have to go rescue the robot by touching it outside of base, they lose one of those up until the point where they're completely out of them. And you only have 2.5 minutes to get as many missions done as you want. There's 14 of them, so it's pretty tight. And so good programming, trying to make good mission strategy is really important this year. One last thing, notice there's lots of lines on this table. That's to encourage you to use line following, and there's a whole separate set of stuff we can help you with on line following. Willem Schulten, one of our guys who's really good at robotics, has posted lots of helpers for that, and I can connect you to those if you need me to. This is the scoring rubric. I show this to you so that you know what the referees are holding. So I showed you the judge rubrics before that the judges use to score your kids. This is the rubric that the referees use at the table. Once again, I'm going to print 1 million copies of this. Referees going to have a stack of this. And every time you compete, when it comes to the competition time in the afternoon, they're going to fill out your team number, which round, 1, 2, 3, their name, and then the table you're on. And all the tables usually have names. And then this is how they score. This form gets handed in to the scoring system folks, and then they use this to put the score on the computer. Be aware that sometimes referees make mistakes, and what they're going to do when they're done scoring your table is they're going to hand it to your team member, and it's up to your team member to initial this form and acknowledge that the score is correct as best that they understand it, and they will not start the next match until the team member has initialed this score sheet. So the ref will score, team member reviews, they sign off, and then it's done. The reason we do this is it's very difficult to go back and reevaluate a score if the table has all changed and been reset. So be aware that your kids are going to have to look at this and check it when the competition part is over, when the actual scoring is occurring in the afternoon, and there's no going back. So that's why we started doing this, and it's very helpful and useful, but you only got one chance to complain, because once it's over, that's it. I got a couple of questions here. Are you allowed to rotate the team members if only 2 players are allowed at the table at a time? The answer is yes. You can only have 2 members at the table while the robot is running. As soon as the robot is back in base, you can switch the kids out. You cannot switch the robot brick, but you can switch the attachment on that brick. So if the kids have a different jig for aiming the robot, or if they have different attachments they want to put on it, that stuff can move in and out of the base, and the kids can move in and out to change those things, but you can only have 2 kids at the table at any one time. Even when the robot's at the table, you just can't switch them while the robot's running. And then the next question is, do you have to do all missions on the table, or can you just pick and choose? You absolutely can pick and choose. And what tends to happen with a number of teams is they get behind, they only have 3 missions out of 14 running, and they think that they've failed, and they don't go to the competition. Please, please, please do not do that. No matter what happens, get those kids to the competition, because it's a way for you to mentally, psychologically finish the season, so the kids understand that even though they may not have done as well as they liked, they have accomplished something. Second of all, you will get there, and there will be other teams just like you who are completely out of control, disorganized, they don't know what's going on, and you can hang out with them and commiserate if nothing else, but more importantly, the kids will see that A, they didn't do as bad as they thought, and B, that there are a lot of teams that really have their act together, and so they'll see what that looks like, and they'll go, oh, you know, next year, if we do this a little better, spend a little bit more time doing that, we can be like those guys. We want them to make that connection that there's effort, and then there's a result, and there's milestones, and that's a big part of the learning that's going on. So get to the competition. I don't care if you don't have a project. I don't care if you don't have a robot. I have had teams show up with a robot box kit that hasn't even been broken, and they don't have a clue what they're doing. They got in late. They got overwhelmed. And by the end of the day, the other FLL teams pitch in, and they help them build a robot, and they get 1 or 2 missions on the field. And I've seen that happen at multiple competitions where we have kids that are just completely lost, and by the end of the day, they have actually competed in the regional. And in fact, one year, one of them won a judge award. So don't give up. Make sure you get to that competition. Absolutely critical for this process to complete for the kids. Okay. Award ceremony at the end. They're lovely. All the students get medals. We buy, it's about 100 pounds worth of medals every year, so everybody gets one. No matter how they do, everybody's going to get a bundle of medals to take back for the team. Hopefully you'll get some trophies too, but even if not, we were acknowledging all the effort and time and accomplishment the kids have done. This is not an opportunity to say, good job, and pat you on the back for participation. This is an actual celebration of working hard to do something. So make sure you get there. Make sure the kids get a medal. I hate to beat on this, but it's so crazy every year. So many people don't show up, and it just drives me nuts. Okay, we talked about judged awards, 1 per team, and you can only win 2 awards if you win the robot competition and a judged award. At the championships, we have trophies made out of Legos. They're going to look different this year, but just so if you're wondering, the judge panel picks the top 5 teams from the event. Usually, the Champions Award is almost a sure thing, and then the Robot Performance tends to be the other one, which is the winner of the robot competition part, and then 3 other teams that displayed great core values. If the Robot Performance or the Champions Award people were really rotten, they have bad core values, we will not send them. So the core values is really the whole thing that makes or breaks a team going to championship. But it is based on judge feedback and volunteer feedback. It's not necessarily the top project and the top robot or anything. We do a lot of core value weighting on the championship teams. Typically it's 5 teams from each event. That may vary depending on the size though. Oh, and that there's 2 events, East and West. By the way, we're almost finished. We're back. We're down to the resources stuff, so just a few more minutes to go. Excuse me. Important documents, and I have this slide here because there are a number of people that don't either know they exist or they didn't get them for various reasons. So as a coach, you should have these 3 things close at hand. Number 1, the coach manual. It's a little spiral brown book. It should have come in coach materials in a little padded envelope with the second item, the project DVD. If you don't have a coach manual, you have to get one because on the inside of the front cover is the core values, which you really need to know. And there's all kinds of other really cool resources in there, including that timeline I was telling you about, so you can measure your progress. So if you don't have a coach manual, it usually gets shipped to the person who purchased the kit. So if you have a purchaser you work through, they probably received it. if they didn't put you in as the coach or use a coach address. So go see them if you didn't get it. They may have no idea what it is. And if you can't find it, get one, and get one right away. Call FLL and ask for another copy, or borrow one from another team or something. And again, in the same envelope, you get this project DVD. This is the thing that has the example presentations from other FLL teams. This isn't quite as critical because you can go online and see them on YouTube and things, but I highly recommend you get a copy of this too. These two things should have come together, and you definitely should have them. And then finally, the FLL Challenge Guide. This is the challenge document that was on that website I showed you earlier. It's just a PDF. Got it here. And the important thing is that it's got all the important pieces: the project, the robot game, field setup stuff. This is how you put your kit on the field. All the missions, all 14 of them, what they're worth, and maybe even some hints on strategy. And then the robot game, the rules, and these are things that get passed down year to year, only slightly modified. So this is all in this one PDF. This is the core of the FLL Challenge. You have to have this document. If you don't have it, go get it. It's on that website, the Senior Solutions Challenge link, and that's coming up in another slide here in just a second. So those are resources you care about, and then these are links you care about. So if you can get this presentation, you'll have all these obviously, but this is the challenge site. This actually has a link to the Senior Solutions, but this link right here is the top level challenge link. It'll work for time immemorial, or at least until FLL changes it, but you can always get to the current challenge from this link, which is why I use this one instead of the specific annual one. And so if we open this up, I think maybe this will work. If you click on it, you'll get to this main challenge page, which again is fixed in time, and then you'll have a link at the bottom to the specific page that's got all the links to the challenge document and all that stuff. Okay? Then we have the game updates, and this is something that a lot of teams miss every year. Once they release the challenge with all the rules, it immediately starts to change. So everyone starts to read the rules and the missions, and they think they've got it all figured out. However, it begins to get modified pretty rapidly. So this is the robot game updates. This is linked from the main page. You'll notice if you go down to the robot game, right here, the second link under robot game is the robot updates page, which takes you right to that guy. And already, even though the challenge has been out for 3 weeks, there have been 12 modifications. And what happens is, despite how smart Scott Evans is, which is the guy that does the challenge design every year, there's lots of smart teams, and they start to do the missions, and they figure out, well, wait a minute, there's some ambiguity here. What do we do? Do we do A or B, or C or D or A? And so they'll ask Scott, and if it's worthy, if it's something that he sees will be a problem for every team, he will post it here as an update. So while you're working on the missions, it's a good idea to have someone on your team who's in charge of checking robot game updates and then updating the team so that if there's something that you're working on, these things will affect it. And if you have a problem, someone else may have figured it out, and Scott may have issued a solution for it. So be aware of the robot game update link. All right, team info. Now this link right here is where you went to register your team if you did that. If you didn't register your team, you may not have ever seen this before. But this is where you're going to make sure your email is right, so you get email from me. And if you don't have an account, you can make one. You're going to have to get invited as the coach by the person who purchased the team. So if you didn't purchase it, it was purchased by someone else, you need to ask them for an invite. Once you have that, you'll be the coach, and I will send email to whatever email address is associated with you as the coach. And there's an assistant coach column, so if there's 2 of you coaching, there can be 2 email addresses, and I'll get email to both of you. But if the purchaser is the only one getting email, then you're going to be out of the loop. And a lot of times it causes tremendous problem with registration and everything else. So please, please, please make sure your email is up to date in the GoFLL website, and let us know if you don't know what that means. We can get that sorted out. Okay, last couple things. The judging, we already showed you. That's where you can get to the rubrics, again, linked from the main challenge page. And then finally, there is a YouTube channel for FLL, and that is where the game videos and the challenge releases are all hosted. You'll notice here, this is where Blair is. There's a bunch of stuff here. You're welcome to go look at it, but there is a YouTube channel that's got a lot of the videos from FLL, including some helpful hint stuff. Okay, other resources. The only one that's like super, super important on this page is this YFLL. We have a Yahoo group, And every time I send something to the teams, I also send a copy to this group. There's 300 or so members, and if you ever need to go find an old email that came from me and you can't figure out where it went, you can go to this site if you're a member and look at the archive. So make sure you join up. It's something I have to approve, so go in, you click on the Join Now button, and then I approve it usually within 24 hours, and then you'll get access to the archive, and you'll get duplicate emails, frankly. But a lot of stuff gets posted here from other teams, like if they're looking for a part or if they have a session that they want to bring other teams to. That'll all happen through here. It won't happen through me. So it's really good for you to sign up for this because it's year-round, and you'll keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in FLL. Excuse me, in the state of Washington. Very quickly, FirstWA, this is our website for the state. This is the website for the national program. So firstwa.org is me and the Washington FLL and other FIRST folks. usfirst.org, national website where you register your FLL team, and they run the whole program of which we are a part. legoeducation.us is where you can buy other NXT parts and things for your robot if you need them. You don't have to be a teacher or someone who works for a school to buy off this site. It's just packaged differently than the retail stuff, and there's lots of things there that you can't get in a regular retail store or on the lego.com website. So it's a good spot to go for NXT parts, etc. And then finally, this is my email address, again, LinkedIn, so if you need to get to me, you can find it that way. Again, just a collection, just a place to go for all this stuff. And I'm rushing here because I'm a little past an hour and a half, so I'm trying to get you guys just to be exposed to these resources. Not really important that you remember how to get to them, but that they're in the presentation someplace. On that note, Minnesota is one of the largest and most successful FLL programs in the planet, and they have this thing called hightechkids.org. If you need ideas, resources, things you can't find anywhere else, great site. It's all organized. There's just tremendous amounts of stuff here to help with your team, and I put it on there so you know that there's an external non-Washington, non-national FLL site that is really well done that will help you if you need some ideas, and including, by the way, a fundraising thing. They have some really cool fundraising ideas, and so a great place to go if you need more info. And then this is a link for training stuff just from the same site but more specific. Okay, believe it or not, this is the last slide. If you're all still awake, then you've made it all the way through. A little bit over an hour and a half. I've answered some questions, so that's really the reason why. I know I sort of sped up at the end there. It's kind of a personal problem of mine. I'm rushing, so I apologize for the pace. But we're basically finished. I usually wrap up just by reminding you that FLL's been around for a really long time. It's well organized. It has a long history of success in getting kids to think about science and engineering careers. As it's evolved, we've got these core values now that are heavily encouraged for the coaches and the teams to understand and try to live towards. So please don't blow those off. Try to incorporate them into what you're doing with the kids. We hope and expect that FLL is a good experience not only for your students but for you. And if it's not, once again, get in touch and let us help you out. And it's not just me. There's 50 people, really 50 people, and I hate to use the word literally, but I'm going to do it anyway. There are literally 50 plus people that can help you out, and I've got all kinds of resources that I can bring to bear to get your team on the rails if it's not fun. But hopefully it will be without too many pains and tears. Make sure you register if you haven't already, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking on the responsibility of an FLL team. It really does have good results for the kids, and so you're doing a great thing for them, and I hope it's a great thing for you. So we appreciate you, and your kids appreciate you. So now I'm finished with the formal part of the presentation. I will take questions. If you want to raise your hand and speak with that little raise your hand button, I will try to keep track of that and put you on voice if that's easier for you. And if you've had enough, then you can bail out. No hard feelings. Okay, questions are coming in. So do you know if they're upgrading the robot kit anytime soon? I am not aware of any upgrades from FLL on the robot hardware. They do upgrade the firmware occasionally. In fact, there is a new version of the firmware that makes it more compatible with Windows 7 and the USB drivers or something. So that's the only thing I know about is the software that goes inside the computer, not the hardware itself. Another question. No more questions. A bunch of your welcomes for everybody who's saying thanks. Thank you for showing up and putting up with an hour and a half of this. Okay, question. Considering it's all volunteer-based, did you ever have a coach that was the reason a team got disqualified? We would never. I shouldn't say never. It's very unlikely a team will get disqualified, because of the coach, but I have ejected a few coaches. And I have had a side conversation with coaches about the fact that they're not giving gracious professional example living to their students. So it's very, I don't, have I ever rejected, maybe, yeah, I think I've ejected one coach, and I have certainly talked to a half dozen or so over the years. I've been doing this for 10 years, so that's a pretty small number considering how long. But I cannot imagine a situation where I would punish the kids just for the coach. If the kids are being horrible, something really, really bad happened, yes, we could eject a team, but I don't have any recollection of that ever happening. How many teams, the next question, how many teams are registered so far and how many open slots left? There are currently, if you're talking about the state, there are 360 some odd teams registered right now. I have no doubt we will break 400, which was what my forecast is. Nation or worldwide, there are almost 12,000 teams registered in the U.S. and I think another 4,000 or 5,000 globally. I think the total estimate is 17,000 teams worldwide this year. They only have like 500 or 600 slots left, and they're getting 100 teams a day, so that's less than 2 weeks. And so I highly recommend that if you're hesitating, that you stop hesitating and get your team signed up if you want one. Okay. That's the last typed in question. I will sit tight. If anybody else has questions, again, you can use your raise your hand feature in your, I'm going to try to get back to the user interface here. Hold on just a moment. Hopefully this screen will refresh. Okay, here we go. Come on. Sorry, folks. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the slide. If you want to talk or have a question you want to ask by voice, click on your raise your hand. Otherwise, just type in that question window. Excuse me. Okay, I've got a raised hand. Okay, I'm going to let someone in to speak. Hold on just a moment. Magdalena, you are on.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. It was great to meet you last time. My question is, when, this was at the last competition, when do you have to have the final names for your team?
You don't. We do not collect team names for any part of the FLL competition, except we do a fundraiser kind of thing where we print the name, where a company will print the kids' names on their shirts or something, but it has nothing to do with the competition. So we do not collect team information at all, except for that fundraiser.
Okay.
But not, so we just, and the amount of kids you have does not matter at all. I mean, if you start out with 10 and you end up with 3, it does no bearing on us, except you can't exceed 10 because that's the limit.
Great, thanks.
You're very welcome. Okay, I've got a couple of typed questions I'll answer here. Parents are pushing for tournament dates. Can I give them 12/8, 12/9, 12/12, 12/13 as keep available dates for Seattle Bellevue area until the schedule is out? The answer is yes, maybe. In fact, there are 2 Seattle dates. I understand their desire to have this figured out, but I don't know what else to do for them besides say, I'm sorry, but this is just the way we have to do it this year. It's an experiment, I admit it. I wish we had them fully nailed down and I could do registration early, but there's no way for me to do registration for the teams until registration is finished. And that will happen in a few weeks, and what's happened, we will, I'll be able to help you guys. I'll give you the dates as quick as I can, and again, you get to choose. That said, so this is the First WA website. I'm dragging on screen here. So if you go to the main First WA website and you scroll down a little bit, there's a link here for the tournament schedule. And this is where I'll be doing those updates. The link to this is in the presentation. So you'll notice that there is a December 8th and 9th Seattle, and then there's another January 12th and 13th Seattle. And I look like maybe that's what you intended here. You put 12/12 and 12/13. It's actually 1/12 and 1/13. And yes, you can do that for anybody in the Seattle area unless you're down toward Tacoma and Olympia, which is a different date. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question, Lynn. Okay, next question. What is the purpose of the secondary location on the registration form? Is it possible to be assigned to a location on the east if you are in Western Washington? The answer is no. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand the purpose of that second block either. It's the biggest, most confusing thing in the world. I'm guessing that there are regions where they're really close together and they can kind of go either way. But in the state of Washington, if you put West Washington as your primary region, you will absolutely get assigned to the West. And if you put East, you will absolutely get assigned to the East. And if we screw that up anyway, we can reassign you. So don't worry that you're going to get stuck someplace and that's that. I will be absolutely flexible, especially if it's my mistake and you get assigned to someplace that's clearly impossible. We do an East and West competition system because of the Cascade Mountains, and they're very dangerous to travel through in the winter. And I don't want to ever get that phone call that a team has gone off the road and somebody's injured or, God forbid, dead. So that's the only reason we have two separate systems. And if we accidentally assign you to the wrong one, we will fix that. Okay, next question. I have a first grader who wants to do FLL as she has done junior FLL. Since she is 7, she will not be able to join. Is this correct? I don't recommend it. 7 is a little young. That said, we're not going to check birth certificates, and if she's precocious and really works well with the team and it all works out, we're not going to boot her out of the competition. As the official representative of FLL, I will tell you no, 7 years old is too young for FLL. What you do is entirely up to you. We're much more strict about the top age limit, the 14-year-old thing, because we don't want a bunch of high school kids doing this and smashing all the middle school kids and ruining the competition for everybody because they've got mad robot skills or something. So that's really more important to me. 7 does feel pretty young. We do have a number of 8-year-olds that compete, and again, if they look like they fit in and everything's working, we're never going to know the difference. But 7 will probably stand out in front of the judges, and they may raise their eyebrows and say, "What's this child doing here?" So just be aware that that's a little bit of a stretch unless she's really mature and and fits right in. How's that for a squishy political answer? Okay, next question. Would you say that a first-time team should shoot for early December or later in 2013? That's a good question. This is the first year we've spread the regionals out over such a long period of time, and I'm not sure I have a good answer for you. It depends on your students. If we're hoping to let everybody make kind of this is my first choice at the registration time. So if you want it more time, then you can choose to go to, like, let's say you're in Seattle, you can choose for the January event, and that's entirely up to you. If it looks like your team is not going to make progress and it's going to take you a month and a half just to get the team name figured out, the project topic, then yeah, shoot for more time. The downside of more time is that milestone is even further away, which gives the kids even more time to blow off working on things. And so it's up to you. But if it were me, what would I do if it were me? It would depend a lot on the team, but at the end of the day, I would probably want it over in December. And that doesn't mean you couldn't go to the other events as spectators. But if you're having trouble, if you're having trouble now, if you see trouble on the horizon, then go for the extra time so the kids have more time to get things sorted out. Next question. Thanks. My question was answered. Oh, on another, can a sponsor corporate have their name on the T-shirts they buy for the kids? Yes, absolutely. One thing about FIRST that you should know is that we have no shame when it comes to getting support from corporations. And one of the cool things about FRC, the high school program, if you'll forgive the digression here, is that we want kids to learn about how business works and how engineering and science fits into the broader context of economics and all those things. And so a lot of FRC teams have groups that are devoted to doing marketing, and they have brochures and they have pins and they're all color coordinated. So if you guys get the kids started on that now, you're teaching them valuable skills. Absolutely get corporate sponsors. Go visit them. Do a robot demo for them. Get them involved. Get them engaged with what's going on. They might support 3 teams instead of 1 next year. So yes, absolutely. Get the no stickers on the robot though. I think that might be going too far. Next question. What about scrimmage opportunities? I know co-hosted last year for Seattle. Will this process stay the same? The question is, the scrimmages, we have so many teams now that we've done a scrimmage or 2 sort of informally. This year, as soon as registration is all finished, I'm going to put the word out to teams to host their own scrimmages because it is absolutely unsustainable for us to try to host a whole scrimmage system and then repeat that and do a bunch of regionals. So the person that's hosted at CO is a coach. He's also very deeply involved with First WA, but at the end of the day, he's a coach. He hosted a scrimmage for a lot of the local teams, and then a lot of other teams got grumpy because there wasn't enough capacity, but that's because no one in their community is doing a scrimmage. So this year, I'm going to try to encourage other teams to host their own scrimmages informally. We'll support them, given we have a little guide that we're building for that, so you'll know how to do it. And so I hope there's lots of capacity and opportunity for that. But if that doesn't come to fruition, yes, the situation will be the same. There will be one at Co. Hopefully that's not true, though. And if you don't know what a scrimmage is just kind of an informal competition where primarily they run the robot at an event, or they simulate the robot game so kids can try stuff out and talk to each other and learn things. Excuse me. and it's structured as there's no judging or anything. And they usually happen in November, so it's 2, 3, 4 weeks before the formal competitions begin. And it's a good way for the kids to have an intermediate milestone that forces them to get something done for missions, and again, also interact with other teams and learn something, line following or something if they need to. But no formal scrimmages hosted by First WA. Okay, I don't have any more hands up. And no more typed questions. I will stay on until everybody bails out, but there's not much more to say, I don't think. I'll get a couple more thank yous. You're all welcome. I'm glad you showed up tonight. Thank you again. Hope you all have a nice evening and can get some relaxing in.